What's shaking, everyone? So yesterday there were some text messages between a couple of FBI agents that were released that kind of vindicated the claims that Donald Trump was conspired against by the deep state, what I mean by deep state, the FBI, the Intelligence Committee, and the Obama administration themselves, including one presidential candidate that you might have heard of. His name is Joe Biden. He was directly in the room where everything went down, and it's going to get really bonkers in the coming weeks and months, as long as shit doesn't turn completely sideways. But before we dig into that, I just want to thank everybody for tuning into the video, and yeah, if there's anything that you'd like further explained, feel free to drop it down in that comment section down below, because this is a very dense subject. Not like dense, but more like there's a lot to unpack here, and we're only gonna talk about what uncovered in the past couple of days and why I think the media, the DNC, and everybody just hates Trump so goddamn much. But if you want any kind of clarification on that, like I said, in that comment section down below, if there's a topic that you'd like to be discussed in the future, feel free to drop it there as well. And while you're down there, if you don't mind hitting that subscribe, or feel free to just drop a like if you appreciate what I'm doing here. So let's dive in. Trump was right about the FBI scramble to assemble Russia evidence after 2016 win, texts claim. Now, it gets really juicy. Federal Bureau of Investigation employee involved in the probe into former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn claimed that President Donald Trump was right after discussing a 2017 intelligence briefing regarding the Russia probe, according to a court filing. Now, the main crux about this is Michael Flynn, a former general, a very well-respected man, but had some very controversial views, at least controversial to the opposition, which, as we'll find out, is no longer just mainstream media. It is mainstream Democrats. It is the Intelligence Committee. But Michael Flynn was not buying any of that Russian shit. He was a hardliner against, well, let's just be out with it. He did not like China. He thought that China was a much more significant threat than Russia, which it has proved to be, especially in the past few months, because I don't know about you, but this lockdown has gone on for, 7 months at this point, and it's all from what place? Russia, right? This is the Moscow virus. I kid, of course, you all know this. The federal court documents filed by Michael Flynn's lawyer in the United States District Court of Columbia on Thursday, I felt like being extra thorough, including text message conversation between FBI staffers about former President Barack Obama's intelligence briefing on January 5th, 2017. One unnamed FBI employee asked another, "What's the word on how Obama's briefing went?" Now, this is also coming from the same administration which Barack Obama said himself he held a scandal-free administration. And of course, that was parroted throughout all of mainstream media, and they are totally culpable in this. Don't you worry. Don't know, but people here are scrambling for info to support certain things, and it's a madhouse, the FBI colleague replied. Trump was right, still not put together. Why do we do this to ourselves? What is wrong with these people? After Obama's briefing, the then Vice President Joe Biden, there he is, and FBI Director James Comey, currently former FBI Director James Comey, to stay behind, along with Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates and National Security Advisor, Obama's National Security Advisor, Susan Rice, for a discussion about Flynn, then a Trump advisor. The details of what took place during the meetings has been intensely speculated and debated by both sides of the political aisle. On January 3rd, 2017, Trump tweeted a suggestion that the Russian hacking briefing was delayed so his opponents could build a case. The president has also alleged on numerous occasions that his predecessor engaged in treason. Well, as the rest of this article details, Trump has been galvanized in those opinions. It's really hard to argue against that at this point. According to Rice and Yates, Obama was concerned over whether restrictions should be placed on the sharing of classified information with Flynn, the incoming National Security Advisor. At the time, he was probed by the FBI as part of the Russia investigation, the totally false Russia investigation that the Mueller probe proved to be just that. Totally false, completely baseless. Exactly what the FBI staffers were texting back and forth. Trump was right, still not put together. It was never put together. Ever. In testimony before the Senate on August 5th, Yates said under oath that Obama and Biden never attempted to influence the FBI's investigation of Flynn. During the meeting, the president, the vice president, the national security advisor did not attempt to, in any way, to direct or influence any investigations, she said. Flynn's lawyers shared additional text messages by an FBI employee on January 10th, 2017, saying that analysts all went and purchased professional liability insurance. Now, why would you do that if you think that you have a concrete case? Why would you purchase some insurance that prevents you from being personally sued in cases such as libel, defamation? Really gets the old noggin jogging, doesn't it? Oh, that's why, because they were worried that the whole thing is pretty ugly, pretty false, pretty defamatory. Now, why would they go out of their way to do this? Well, I kind of laid out my premise for the video in the beginning. So I laid out my premise for this in the beginning because Michael Flynn vehemently opposed China. Now let's get a little more breaking information from today. FBI agent in Flynn case had doubts about investigation documents show. An FBI agent assigned to special counsel Robert Mueller's team told investigators he thought the probe into Michael Flynn was unclear and disorganized, and the former national security advisor wasn't conspiring with Russia. Nobody was conspiring with Russia. The only people that were conspiring with Russia, or at least attempted to, was, in fact, one Barack Obama, because there is a tape out there. It's actually a video, in fact, and it's fairly well circulated in certain circles, where he is meeting with the Prime Minister of Russia. Now, Vladimir Putin is the president of Russia, but there is a Prime Minister of Russia, and his name escapes me. But he also leaned over when Obama didn't believe that the microphones would capture him saying that he would be more flexible after the election. So, if you guys had any doubts that all of this accusatory rhetoric that goes on from the left isn't merely pure projection, well, that's a little bit of evidence for you right there. So that's all we have right now on this ever-evolving Flynn, Trump, Russia situation. It's looking like the Obama administration has done some really shady shit. Now, how much is Obama and Biden directly involved? We know that they held a meeting to conspire against Michael Flynn, and he was dragged for it. They threatened his son over it, and that's why he had to plead guilty twice under oath. He had to perjure himself, and that's what they caught him on. Because they were threatening his son, and that's what a reasonable father does, is protect his children, obviously. So why would the Democrats go through all of this trouble just to slander a national security advisor, a potential national security advisor? That's because all of their policies, all of the Democrat policies, from Joe Biden advocating for China's entry in the World Trade Organization in 2001, it goes back even further than that. China has its tendrils in everything. Whenever you see Chinese companies linked to funding certain endeavors, that always means, because China is a communist country, you are well aware of that, it means that the profits of those Chinese companies directly go to the Chinese government. Communism. They own these companies, at least a little bit. They aren't as capitalistic as leftists would like to spin it to you. This is a communist regime. So let's give you some concrete facts on where Michael Flynn stands on China. Instead of just taking me for my word, let's go to the documented evidence. In a recent interview, President-elect Trump, this is from 2016 after all, confirmed what UCS, the Union of Concerned Scientists, anticipated in the first post of its China Transition Watch, that the Nixon-Kissinger era of U.S.-China relations, established on the basis of the One China policy, is coming to a close. The question now is what comes next? Well, if Chinese influence throughout the entire globe isn't something that needs a reworking, I don't know what does. The answer to that question depends on who crafts and conducts U.S. foreign policy in the Trump administration. The president-elect said he learned about a controversial call with Republic of China President Tsai Ing-wen, I think that's how you say his name, only an hour or two before it happened. We know that the call was planned months in advance and was the product of an aggressive lobbying effort. If the call is any indication on how President Trump intends to manage consequential decisions on U.S.-China relations, his foreign policy advisors are likely to play a decisive role. This Union of Concerned Scientists has a concerted interest in China, in making it a strong ally with the U.S. because, well, they're the main subverter and one of the most poisonous influences in modern society. Not even just U.S. society, in Western society at large. So the less we have to deal with the communist China, the more we can deal with regular Chinese citizens. That would be better, because the Communist Party itself, well, they're murderous. Just look at the Uyghur death camps, concentration camps, education camps, whatever you want to call them. They're putting these people to death, and fate's worse than death. We'll get to that eventually. The Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State, National Security Advisor so I'll save everyone some reading. Lieutenant General Michael T. Flynn, Mr. Trump's choice for National Security Advisor, does not share the similar position that Russia is the main adversary of the U.S. So it is worth examining his views on world affairs, so they might influence the course of U.S.-China relations. The National Security Advisor would be the most influential person when it comes to international policy, so you can see why he was targeted. Informed intelligence, trying to sow seeds of distrust in somebody who's had a spotless record up to this point, by the way. Mr. Flynn is a retired U.S. intelligence officer who believes China is part of a working coalition of state and non-state actors comprised of jihadis, communists, and garden variety tyrants. He also believes the U.S. is engaged in a world war against a collection of bad actors who Flynn believes are bound together by the shared hatred of the West. All you need to do is look at the riots right now. They are so anti-West. They are current-day jihadis. They are waging war against an entire system and using improvised explosives to blow it up. I think that's fair analysis from Michael Flynn. I think we did ourselves a great disservice by not having him be the National Security Advisor. Well, actually, I take that back. That wasn't us who had a great disservice. That was the Obama administration conspiring against Trump prior to his inauguration by smearing and costing Michael Flynn his position and his freedom in the previous 4 years. And their time is quickly approaching where they're going to have to pay for that. I never really stopped and thought why the media, why the left, the establishment left, like the Democrats and everybody in power, truly hates Trump. I usually just kind of chalked it up to he beat Hillary, wasn't supposed to win, all the polls were so far in the Democrats' favor, and they were just going to continue this Obama policy into, I don't know, forever, maybe. I think Trump was at least in 2016, the last shot for the Republicans to truly have any sort of presidential power. And that's just what I always chalked it up to. Maybe he just wasn't supposed to be there and they're still butthurt about it. But really, with all of these text messages and all this additional evidence coming out in the past 24, 48 hours, it really got my noggin jogging when it came to, I think they are just so deeply in bed with China. And Trump has always been against China. This isn't a recent thing. This isn't a 2015 campaign thing. It seems to make the most sense to me. Now let's take a look here. Why Donald Trump beats Joe Biden when it comes to the issue of China. Let's go right to what Biden has to say. Or what Biden stands for, rather. Biden has established a record of being soft on China while ignoring the real harm that was headed for the United States as a result of the rise in power. He was an early champion of China entering the World Trade Organization, which he wholeheartedly supported in 2001, ignoring the devastating economic impact of the country and a very big possibility that American jobs may be lost, and were lost. Even when a progressive senator cautioned in 2000 that the rise of China would result in firms moving factories there, Biden said he did not view a collapse in the American manufacturing economy if China, a nation with the impact of the world economy about the size of the Netherlands at that point, had suddenly become a major competitor to the United States. Well, Biden was wholeheartedly wrong, and he had every reason to spew Chinese propaganda at that point. China was firmly a communist nation thanks to Mao and his hundreds of millions of deaths. Thousands and thousands of deaths that add up to perhaps 100 million. They cannot properly count in due to Mao's Cultural Revolution. They just stopped counting how many people that they killed. Perfect. This continues. Could Biden have been more wrong? In 2001, China became a member of the World Trade Organization. This move ultimately led to the loss of more than 60,000 American factories. Ever since then, China has continuously manipulated its currency to affect financial markets, forced the transfer of technology as a terrible cost of doing business with the nation, illegally dumped products like steel to ruin prices, and much, much more. China's not a good actor. It's not a good faith trade partner, and they are, well, in current times of desperation, as their economy is currently in a downturn, and the fact that the Three Gorges Dam, which you may or may not have heard about, is currently, at least still to my knowledge, is on the brink of collapse, and that within itself is a major power generator. And if that dam breaks, 400,000 Chinese stand to either die or be brutally affected. Now, I know Chinese Communist Party, I should say, doesn't much care for its citizens and could stand with the loss, but they could not do without that dam and the effect of the land, because for having 1.2 billion people within its borders, China is not a massive country by any means. Not for that many people, at least. And I said China has its tendrils in practically everything. Well, China to donate an additional 30 million to the WHO for COVID-19. China to donate additional 30 million to the WHO for China to donate additional $30 million to the World Health Organization for COVID-19. They are the single largest contributor to the World Health Organization. That's why you get all of those bumpers. That's why you get so many advisors for the World Health Organization not acknowledging the existence of Taiwan, disavowing Hong Kong. Well, not so much disavowing as disregarding their existence, because they are funded and owned by China. Hate to say it, the US was the largest contributor to the World Health Organization, and then Trump vowed to revoke their funding because they were just being a Chinese mouthpiece. And since then, that included an additional $30 million, makes China the sole largest contributor to the World Health Organization. And that's not the only other major institution that China wholeheartedly funds. Chinese army funds went to Democrats, a donor says. Well, shouldn't this be mainstream news? Wouldn't you think? Oh no, this is actually from May 16th, 1998. China's had their tendrils in the DNC for a very, very long time. So that's why all of those... So that's why it really got my noggin jogging. That's why I think Donald Trump's threats against China, his promise to return manufacturing to the U.S., and his hardline stance against the CCP scares the living piss out of the Democrats, because they are so deeply in bed with China and all of their institutions. Hollywood. Look at Marvel movies constantly censored or constantly changed in order to appeal to the Chinese market. It's all about the bottom line. And that's why they hate Trump. That's why they smear his allies. And that's why we're never, ever getting the truth. Because unless you want a communist future, you will not hear the truth. And communists don't deal in truth. They deal in propaganda. So that's it on the topic for right now. When more information about this ever-evolving Flynn situation comes out, I am sure to update this. And right now, there's not a lot to go on. But, yeah, it sure looks like a conspiracy to me. Like a legitimate one. Anyways, guys, I'll end it there. Really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, and we'll catch you in the next one. I've been Khan Swaylo, and I want you guys to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.